So, the MightE Bambino pre-final. I keep forgetting to say the pre-final, but it is a very important part of it. Silence has come across Glan-y-Gors yet again. And let's bring up the grid order. Kane Langley, who's been fairly dominant so far in the MightEs, ahead of Rhys David Richardson, who's got 93 points, drawn with Ansel Murray. And I think because he's got a faster lap, he just starts ahead of Ansel. Harris Barber in 4th place, with Freddie Baker in 5th, and Albert Batchelor in 6th. Max Joy rounds out the field alongside Sydney Nell in 7th and 8th. So, the MightE class, obviously. If you haven't joined us before in the morning, it's, well, if you did join us, you'll know exactly what I'm about to say, but it's the all-electric Bambino class. Aimed at 4 years old, the MightE range can consist of the Bambino class that we got here today, as well as the cadet class that drivers can move up into when they choose, when they see fit. Here at Bambino Kart Club, we only have the one class, of course, though. So these guys will be, I'm sure, training hard. Langley has taken every single victory that's been available to him so far today in the MightEs. He'll be sporting the GP plate, as well as we see the drivers just lining up on the dummy grid at the moment. They will be doing a standing start, and it looks like they're going out on circuit at the moment. Yeah, they will be doing a standing start due to the fact that obviously it's electric engines, or anything they can do that. Designed to be a literal plug and play system. All you need to do is set the kart up and plug it in overnight to get enough charge. Now, I'm sure they'll probably be charging it in between races as well. It does require you to have a generator, I suppose, but most drivers and teams and everything obviously do have generators around the paddock now, so it's probably not going to be too hard for them to find a way of charging them. So actually, I was wrong earlier on. I said that Langley would be having the GP plate, but apologies, I read my results wrong. It's actually Rhys David Richardson, of course it is. He'll be sporting the GP. He'll be starting on 2nd. Very impressive and very exciting race in the MightEs earlier on today, actually. It's certainly worth, if you're tuning in today, tuning in for these pre-finals and finals, definitely watch that back. In fact, watch all the GP's finals, because it was just stunning. No championship points on offer just meant that everybody felt like they could just go for it, and go for it they did. But of course, because there was no championship points on offer, it didn't really help Rhys David Richardson in this particular race. He still starts on the front row alongside Langley. Number 10, we're just waiting for a few of the karts in the background just to get back in their positions. All the mechanics trying to make sure their karts are in the right place and were in all fully working order as well. Walking back to the grid now, all the dads and mums and sisters and brothers will be giving their supports on the sidelines for these MightE Bambinos, and it's a good start there by Langley in the number 10. The GP plate, Rhys couldn't quite get across, and he's going to start a battle, I think, with his old rival Ansel Murray. Harris Barber, however, is the driver that's managed to put himself up to 2nd position. Really good battle from him. Ansel Murray got really good pace, and actually, although Kane Langley was very quick in the first half of the weekend and the sort of morning sessions, it was actually Rhys Richardson and Ansel Murray who had the pace on him in that GP final. So what Langley needs to do is just try and rediscover that mojo that he was having before. 32 car of Harris Barber being overtaken around the outside by the 96 of Ansel Murray, and Ansel gets into 2nd place for what is a flying start from him. Started in 4th, into 2nd. Not even the first lap being done and dusted here. Rhys David Richardson obviously not having such a good start. He's gone from 2nd down to 4th. In fact, he's had exactly the opposite start. He's trying to get back into 3rd, however, because he knows full well that he doesn't want to lose touch, lose base with Ansel Murray, but I think he's already done so. He's trying to go by the outside of T1. It's brave moves, and you can just see the 32 guys looking so hard at Richardson there. He just tried to get back in behind him to get that draft. Let's see if he Goes for the old cutback switcheroo. Take that third place back away from Richardson. No, Richardson nice and late on the brakes. Gets the flowing move through there. Already Kane Langley with a 1.7 second gap. Then you got Anselm Murray with a probably about the same second gap, to be honest. Back to Rhys David Richardson. You can see it on your screen there. It's already rather substantial. Little battles further back here, though, between Bachelor, Baker, and I believe that's Nell. Just have a look at the numbers. The 54 it is Bachelor, and that means it is Baker, and it is Nell as well. I can tell you that Kane Langley is actually going for some sort of defensive lines, actually, to be honest. We're focusing on Barber. As I mentioned before, there probably were a few question marks when MightE decided to try and get some traction in the UK karting world. Obviously, electric racing is something that we see quite often now. We're fairly familiar with the Formula E service. Then you got the new, I can't for the life of me remember, the name was on the tip of my tongue, and now I can't remember the Extreme E. There we go, almost the Dakar style, Extreme E style stuff, where they plough across deserts and rainforests and Arctics and all that sort of thing, to try and prove that electricity really can go anywhere, and electric racing can really sort of do what it wants to do. And there's some big backers as well in those sort of series. Obviously, you've been Mercedes and BMW and Jaguar in the Formula E for so long now. Mercedes are pulling out, and people might argue that Formula E is maybe sort of almost been a bit of a flash in the pan, but they're still proving to pull out strong grids. They're pulling strong fan bases as well. So the sort of future of electric in racing, there's probably more resistance than there is agreement, but it's still going to be here in some form or another for the foreseeable future anyway. Probably for the rest of racing's future, to be honest. You'll just see these kind of grids grow and grow and grow. And these kids are getting right in at the base of it, basically. Right at the start, Kyle Langley, Murray, Richardson, Barber, Baker, Bachelor, Nell and Joy. You can probably expect to see those drivers in electric racing for the next 10 years. If the likes of MightE and some other manufacturers come in to play with it, it's definitely going to be around and about to stay here. So the lack of noise does change the atmosphere somewhat, and I can completely understand why people might be maybe not opposed to it, but I can completely understand why people might be a bit tentative to go towards it. But at the end of the day, it still is racing. It still can produce some exciting stuff. And although the pre-final here seems to have sort of chilled out a little bit as Nell gets past Bachelor, it still is, it still is racing. It's still teaching them the fundamentals of racing line, throttle application, braking, and all that sort of thing as well. And if anything, acceleration of an electric kart might actually help them control the throttle a little bit more. Oh no, who's that? That is Rhys David Richardson having to pull off the circuit in the GP plate. And as I was just saying about the electric motors and praising electric motorsport, it looks like maybe one of them was conked out. And I mean, if I had a co-commentator here, he'd probably blame me for commentator's curse there, unfortunately. But the electric moment of Rhys David Richardson has failed him. And after the highs of the GP plate victory, he's going to the lows, unfortunately, of the pre-final here. And that means he'll have to start at the back of the grid in the final. It might give us something very exciting to watch with him fighting through the order, but it's still not exactly what you want to see. You always want to see the closest battles at the front end, as close as they can go. The final, just coming up to the final 2 minutes here. The drivers definitely making sure that they are learning as much as they can. Again, very different to their Heat 4. These drivers have had basically 3 different conditions to get to grips with here at Glan-y-Gors. They had the rain and the changeable conditions. That was the Heat 4. That was the first race of this morning. We had sort of all of a sudden, I wouldn't say a downpour, but a definite change in the weather from qualifying to Heat 4. And then all of a sudden they start drying out, and they got a dry track, but it's still a bit cold. It was still a bit murky. Clouds were overhead for the GPs, but they were on slicks. And now, crucially, bone dry, sunny day. Where else would you rather be than North Wales on a sunny day like this at GYG? There are probably some people out there that's saying, you know, Tenerife would be quite nice, but I disagree with them. I think that the BKC at GYG is the place to be. Is the battle between Nell and Bachelor is still going on. It's they haven't really released each other so much. They're putting in similar lap times. The lap times are very different depending on where you look in the times, to be honest, which is why you see such a difference between Nell, let's say, and Langley. A 45-second gap between Langley and Nell, which is essentially 3/4 of the track. Langley lapping in the 58s, and Ansel Murray lapping in the 59s. And then everybody else lapping in the 1 minute. Sydney Nell in the 1:07s. Albert Bachelor, that battle, 1:06s as well. You got Barber and Baker sort of lapping in that sort of 1:02 range as well. So there are little battles where people are sort of trying to push each other, but they are separated rather drastically. As we head into the last 30 seconds, we're focusing on Kane Langley here. On the track of his own at the moment, it almost looks like he's testing. He's that far ahead of the rest of the drivers, but he's not testing. He's pushing it as hard as he can. And this will be the penultimate lap of the race. 5 seconds to go before the counter ticks down to 0. And the MightE Bambino grid for the final will be decided. Langley's coming up to lap a few drivers here, and I think this is Albert Bachelor and Sydney Nell. I think he's the drivers that he's actually overtaking. So the battle that we were watching just before, they're now having blue flags waved at them, but Langley's deciding to do the hard bit anyway and go around the outside of them. And a little bit of a correction of the steering, but he still gets through. Very well done. Can he get through on 54 Bachelor as well? He does, cuts that up very nicely, which means those drivers will have one less lap to do come the end of the race and one less lap to try and make any kind of overtakes. About to start the final lap of the race then, Kane Langley, who has been fairly dominant, it's safe to say. He took 3 race victories. He took Heat 4 race victory, I believe, as well. It was only the GP plate that he didn't take the first place medal. Maybe he was planning it. Maybe he didn't want to win the GP plate because he knew that it was bad luck. Maybe he wanted to keep that number 10 on his kart, and he would let Richardson take the GP plate because he knew it would scupper Richardson's race in the pre-final. I don't think it was that. In fact, I'm 100% convinced it wasn't that. But it's still something to think about. That number 10 seems to be very lucky for Langley. I'm sure he'll be hoping to keep it going forward, or maybe even improve and get into the single digits come the end of the season. A few drivers off. I can see a few mechanics going to recover some karts, but they'll be able to recover them fully as Langley takes the checkered flag, and he's very happy about it. He's absolutely buzzing. It doesn't matter how many times you win. The fact you win, it's still the same. Kane Langley, Ansel Murray comes across the line, 6.7 seconds back. And then we got Barber, who's potentially coming across the line anytime soon to take the last step of the podium. And in fact, I think this is him coming around the last corner now. And that was a Barber, and I believe Nell and Joy have taken the checkered flag as well. And this looks like Baker in 4th place. And that is all she wrote, thanks to the fact that Reese David Richardson ended up DNFing, which was a big shame. So Kane Langley will be on pole position for the final of the MightE Bambinos.